Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an all-new episode of the Financial Confessions. It's me, your girl, Chelsea Fagan, founder and CEO of The Financial Diet and person who loves talking about money. And also, incidentally, person who loves talking about and reading about home decor and now home renovations, given that I am officially finally a homeowner, and all of this stuff that sort of makes the space that we live in beautiful and functional and a place that we like to be. Something that we've talked kind of a lot about on TFD throughout the years is how creating a space at home that feels good, that you want to be in, that reduces your stress level rather than adds to it, that allows you to be productive, that allows you to get good sleep. All of these things are hugely financial in nature. We often find ourselves wanting to go out and spend money when we don't frankly like being at home so much. And for most people, there's going to be some element of home design, decor, organization, renovation that contributes to a huge part of that. Often we can treat things that are sort of beauty or creative or design in nature as being frivolous and unnecessary and something that we should just cut out of our budgets or that shouldn't really be part of the conversation of personal finance. But as we talked about on our recent interview with Hannah Louise Poston, which I'll link in the description and the show notes, there is a huge overlap for many people in the lifestyle choices that you make and ultimately the budget that you're living within and your financial priorities. It's not realistic for most people to just cut all of this out, nor is it something that most of us should cut out because ultimately we have to live somewhere and that's going to impact how we feel, how we spend, and all of the above. At the end of the day, though, for many people, especially more aspirational home decor and home organization are just frankly not very affordable. And even when things possibly could be, it's hard to know where to shop, what's worth investing in, where you can find pieces, and how to assemble a room, especially when, like myself living in Manhattan, you don't have a ton of space to work with. Although in some ways, looking back, it might actually be easier because you just don't have so many huge rooms to fill up with furniture. So something to be considered for that. Either way, though, you guys have been heavily requesting my guest today to talk about all of these things and to make sure that we are addressing this stuff from a budget-friendly perspective. And thanks to Upstart for supporting this episode of the Financial Confessions. Upstart is a leading artificial intelligence AI lending platform designed to improve access to affordable credit. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/TFC. And that guest with me here today is interior design YouTuber Nick Lewis.
Hello.
Welcome to New York City from Vancouver.
I know. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a big fan.
Oh, it's so exciting to have you. It's so, I was mentioning in the intro, but obviously we were talking a little bit before we started filming that I wasn't aware of your channel until you were in a live that I did and you asked a question and just like dozens and dozens of people were like, it's Nick.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I asked the question of whether or not kind of interior design trends were sustainable and whether or not YouTubers specifically, myself included, should be called out in that. And I don't think you saw the question. But you saw all the other, hey, Nick, how's it going? And I think there's a lot of overlap. My audience definitely requested. Like I said, I was coming to New York City and I didn't say I was coming for this. And I was like, who should I collaborate with? And everybody was like, Chelsea from The Financial Diet. And I'm like, joke's on you, already doing that. So yes, I'm very excited.
It is very exciting. So, you know, one of the first things I kind of want to talk about is we were talking a little bit before we started recording about the increasing what I would call kind of fast fashionification of home design, interior decor, all of that, where there are lightning fast trends and there are things that people feel like they need for their home. And a lot of, obviously, that is driven by social media. But I'm really interested to hear kind of your thoughts as someone who's been familiar with the industry for a time and, you know, where you think this is headed.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it is pandemic driven. For starters, right? I think people spend more time in their homes, which is causing them to kind of look around and go, oh, you know, this place isn't serving my needs. It's kind of not attractive, and so I need to do something about it. And they went to places like YouTube and other social media, which of course also had a huge boost during the pandemic, to look for sort of inspiration. And that was great for people like me and my channel, but it was a challenge, I think, because it did mean people wanted to change over their home decor and renovate a lot quicker, which has caused huge implications in terms of the industry for lead times, prices. I mean, everything has just gone crazy in the industry over the last couple of years. But originally, like, fast fashion, people used to, they used to change their outfits fairly regularly, obviously, right? And that's where fast fashion was there to meet that need of like, okay, you need to change your outfits, you need to change your wardrobe, there's new styles, new trends, this trend is in, this trend is out, this trend is dead, this trend is amazing. And all that stuff was moving at a really super quick pace, and H&M and Zara and all those guys were there to fit that need. Home decor didn't change over as often, and the reason is people don't renovate their houses, and they don't change over their houses as quickly as their wardrobes, and that was how it always was. The pandemic changed that, because now it's important to have the good background for those Zoom calls, and it's really important that you're spending more time at home, so you're like, well, this place is a bit of a dump, I need to change it, and I need to fix it. And so people are changing things over quicker than they used to, and of course companies, as they tend to do, are there to sort of meet that need. So it never used to be as quick. Trends used to have more longevity than they do now. Now I'm seeing a lot more YouTubers and people, in my space saying this trend is super hot for 2022. And then, it's now end of June, and it's like, okay, well, now those trends are over. Those trends are done. We don't want to see that anymore. And some of it was just really stupid stuff that should never been a trend in the first place and should probably never have gone into your home. But some of that is just like, I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. There's just no reason why that thing that you worked hard for and put in your home at the beginning of January that we told you kind of to get is now all of a sudden dead and gone 6 months out of the year, right? It used to last years. Now it's lasting months, which is obviously not sustainable and stupid.
No. So I talked about this before. Especially during the pandemic, to your point, I follow some professional interior designers, and I follow design magazines and things like that,
right.
Legit professionals, but I had to stop following influencers whose job was just to be perfect in this respect, because aside from the undisclosed SpawnCon of it all, which is a huge problem.
It's a whole other thing.
It's a whole other thing, but the influencers, I think especially, are really what is often driving those trends and making everything feel, really minute to minute. And also I think that there's a level of kind of self-deception as far as what is realistic when you're watching what should be, at the end of the day, a normal person, quote unquote, versus at least when you're looking, when I'm reading an Architectural Digest, which I love to read, I know that I'm looking at, a professional thing that is completely out of my price range, that is not something that you're
right.
taking inspiration from,
right?
As opposed to trying to imitate or copy. But I think the conflation of that has made a lot of people feel like they're constantly on a hamster wheel of what is aspirational.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And that was the thing. I mean, you can look at Architectural Digest and they can take you for a tour of Gwyneth Paltrow's home and you can go, okay, it's beautiful. Maybe I can afford the olive tree that she has in her lobby. And that's about it. Right.
That's it.
And that's a whole nother thing. But, and you might take some inspiration from that. And I think that can be fine. Although I just did a video last week specifically about the olive tree because I'm tired of the plant trends. Those need to go. It's the ficus, and all of a sudden now is the fiddle leaf fig, which was super popular.
Notoriously difficult to keep alive.
100% will definitely die. But Bobby Burke told you to get one of those a few years back, and now the New York Times, as of a month ago, said the fiddle leaf fig is dead. Now, what's the new tree? And I can tell you it's the black olive tree because Gwyneth Paltrow has it, and everybody wants the black olive tree, and it's all over Crate and Barrel and CB2, and all those guys are there doing these fake olive trees and blah blah blah. Anyway, plants, in my opinion, are perfectly timeless and not a trend. But anyway, yes, back to your point. I think a lot of and you touched on the SpawnCon, which I think is really important, because I think what people don't understand, especially kind of in my niche, is that it's profitable to change our space.
Exactly.
People don't need to, it's not like Nick must be doing well because he's changed his living room 5 times in the last year. No, it's because, I don't do that, but other people do that. And I'm not saying that they're, bad people. People need to understand that when they go, hey guys, I was just really tired of my living room, so I decided to buy all these products on Amazon, or wherever. It's one thing, those are affiliate links. So obviously they're making money on that, and people need to be aware of that. Not only are they have affiliate links, but they might even be gifted to them. So it's not even like you're paying the expense of going to buy the product. I have people all the time that are offering me, and this isn't a flex, it's just the reality of here's a free couch, here's a free chair, do you want a free dining table? And I was like, no, I like them. I design the space, I'm done. I'm my living room is my living room. It's over. I don't need a new couch necessarily, right? I don't need one. So not only is it affiliate links, but it's gifted. And then, of course, there's the other level, which is we'll give you a couch and we'll pay you.
Yes.
Which is, of course, another, which, I mean, a lot of people are just like, okay, so I'll take the free couch and the $5,000 and and then all of a sudden you can just tell your following, well, you know what? I just really wanted to change my living room. Well, if they wanted to change their living room, maybe you should change your living room. The problem for most people is they don't get $5,000 in a free couch every time they change their living room.
Well, and that, I mean, for sure. And it's also new content, right? Like it's also something new to look at. People want the makeover. They want the before and after. And I feel like that is, so I have like a hard and fast rule that I will not do any kind of sponsorship for anything as an individual, only through TFD. Like obviously this podcast is sponsored, but it's an ad through my business where you know that you are seeing an advertisement that is disclosed and in its context. But, you know, similar to you, I get approached all the time as an individual for my personal life and accounts by these brands that, you know, will send me expensive and I'll never take it because A, I think it's deceptive to the audience, but B, I also think it puts you on such a hamster wheel of needing to then keep doing that and to live up to that standard, which, I mean, quite frankly, like, especially when we're talking about like, you know, certain high-end brands that have reached out, like I couldn't afford to do the rest of my apartment at that quality, you know? So now am I going to suddenly be aspiring it, or the people that follow me going to be aspiring to it, or thinking that that's, because even if you do disclose it once, I think the problem, and we have an upcoming video all about the problem of undisclosed sponsored content, but even if you disclose it the first time, which often you do because of, you know, the FTC stuff, every subsequent photo of your home is full of shit that you were paid to get or you got for free, and no one's the wiser.
Right. Yeah. And that's what people don't, I'm not sure everybody fully understands it. Is like, it's you're paid to move it along quicker. You're paid to turn it over as an influencer. And it's because it's the system in place where you're selling the old couch on Facebook Marketplace, right? So there's some money, a little bit. Then you got the affiliate link, you're making money there. You've got the free couch, which you then, you know, there's another free couch 3 or 4 months down the road, so you can sell that one. And then you've got the ads that you're placing on the video because there's content there. And then you're potentially, you know, if you're really big, you've also got sponsorship dollars of, can I pay you because there's a 60-second ad read that's in your video, right? So and there's ads on AdSense, and like there's all these different ways, and I don't think people realize the incentive that's there. And what scares me is the audience demands it of us. So like that's like, I'm not saying like, you know, we're villains and the audience is innocent victims necessarily, although there is obviously issues of disclosure, but like the audience demands it. I had a person, this stuck out. I don't read all my comments because well, for lots of reasons, mostly mental health, but to be quite honest.
Same.
Yeah, and a lot of people are like, no, I owe it to read every single one. I'm like, no, I made the video. I made the video, they commented, that's how this works. I don't need to go back and like go through everything. But anyway, I did read this one. And it was, I said about how the pandemic, I think it was about pandemic trends and how it's changed interior design. And one comment that came through was like, I said like the importance of the background, right? Like the aesthetics of the background, because people were working from home and whatever, and that is a whole new thing. The interior, you know, getting the home office, that's a trend that has definitely been kickstarted in the last couple of years. Bringing back that home office. It used to be you could just sit on your laptop at your dinner table and it was fine. 2 years into this pandemic where people are working from home, that's not good enough anymore. They're carving out space in their home for an office. And I said, so the importance of a background. This person commented and said, which, you know, whatever, people have said worse, but she said, you know, Nick, you said the importance of your background, which I think is really interesting because your space is boring and ugly and also never changes. And like, for the record, I was not offended by boring and ugly. Go ahead. Feel free to insult I don't care. It's my house, not yours. Your house is yours, whatever. I don't care that she thinks it's boring and ugly, but the not that's never changing, I thought was really interesting because I just thought she expects, like, this is my living room. Right. Why does it change? Like I might buy some new things if something fits into what I already have. But to me, I already designed the space. I did the proper space planning. I bought the right stuff for the home.
Totally.
I bought I bought the tulip table and everything that fit that space. Like I did my proper space. I did all the things that I'm supposed to do, that I wanted to do to make sure that I had proper space planning. There was good movement in the space, that it was cohesive, that it was everything I wanted. It's done. I don't need to change my living room every 3 months. And I just thought it was interesting that the audience, I'm sure if there's one of her, there's 10,000, that think that I should change my background, that my background is a problem because I haven't changed it. And I looked at all these other people in my space, and I'm not saying anything about them, but the amount of like, there's a lot of, and I'm not calling them out, but it's like there's halls and there's changing, and guys that got really bored of my living room and my office and my whatever, and they're constantly moving in their space. And it's that, as you said, you called it a hamster wheel. It's the hamster wheel there too, of just like constantly trying to make your space look fresh and interesting for the audience. So because they're demanding it. And I'm like, no, it's done.
And
like,
yeah. And well, I mean, plus when you combine it with like what you were mentioning earlier with the trends, like I think about that all the time when it comes to especially what we share on social media and what people are now sort of making public, because for so long, what was in your home was private. It was the people you were inviting into it. And also, I mean, listen, even if your space isn't amazing, generally speaking, if you're having guests over, they're not going to just be dragging it. No. They're going to be nice about it. And also it's about the way you make them feel and this, that, and the other. And we'll kind of get into, creating a space from a more functional perspective. But, I painted my kitchen cabinets this green color. It's like a sage olive kind of color. And I didn't realize it was a trend color, but I saw these posts that were like, I am so sick of this green. This green is so dated now. It's the new millennial pink and whatever. And I was like,
right.
I regret existing in a social media sort of ecosystem that I'm even exposed to that, because now it's implanted in my brain and I'm not changing them. I'll probably paint them once every couple years just to have fun.
Yeah.
But like the fact that people now have to, and not just influencers, obviously, even just individuals now are exposing their personal living space to people they don't know sometimes on social media. I think that's part of what makes it so maddening.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, which is crazy. Like I was stopped in the street here in New York and this person was like, oh my God, I love your channel. And the first thing I thought was, that guy has seen my living room in Vancouver. Like, It's weird. Like that's like, it is weird. Like we have to acknowledge that it's weird. And that's just me, which is obviously on a different scale because I film in my own home. But everybody's on Instagram and everybody's on TikTok and everybody's doing it, most people are anyway, or a lot of people are. We are exposing. And I think that is, you talked about the fast fashion earlier and how that was a thing. It used to be, because it was that private space, it didn't really matter very much. Like it was there for you and your close friends and family. But now that it is somewhat for public consumption, then there's a certain degree, just like it is with fashion, of kind of keeping up with the Joneses and keeping up with the new trend. And I'm sorry about the green, because I did a paint colors of the year video, which was kind of had a lot of views, and green is the color of the year. I'm sorry, I did that video, and so everybody knows.
But I'm okay to have the color of the year.
Yeah, it is. It's good. You're very on trend. Green is very trendy.
And listen, I'm a redhead. I have a lot of green in my life. My bike is green. I like green, but also I do feel. So I want to talk about kind of speaking of these things of the year. So one of the issues that I think is created by the sort of trends in the fast fashionification is that it's more and more normalizing this ultra budget furniture and home decor, which there's the same problems in it as is in fast fashion from an environmental perspective, from a durability perspective, all of that stuff. Arguably even worse with furniture, because you're talking about things that, in previous generations would last decades, would be passed down. I have not a ton, but a fair amount of heirloom stuff from previous, a lot of it's from my grandmother, like that used to be the level of quality we were talking about. But now I think, and it's sort of chicken or the egg, because also, let's be honest, the purchasing power is just lower than it was in her generation.
Absolutely.
But there is this normalization of defaulting to super ultra budget stuff, which, often will manifest in things like, MDF furniture, knockdown furniture, that's the medium density fiberboard, where it's basically just like crushed up shards with acrylic over it.
It's a waste material,
exactly,
really, that is then glued together.
That is now glued together.
Yeah,
and they're building enormous amounts of furniture out of that. They're creating this knockdown furniture, which is literally made to never be able to be taken apart and moved. You just have to literally knock it down. You have, plastic on plastic on plastic. It's just not a good approach to furniture from an environmental or durability perspective. But for many people, that can feel like the only option. So, what is your general advice and sort of ideology when it comes to where it's okay to go budget, where to invest, where to access the better stuff, what's worth it, what's not, that whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's a whole, yeah. So I'd love to tell you that that there's a secret place that people go to get the highest quality furniture at the absolute best price. And there is some great retailers that I love, but yeah, I mean, it's a real challenge because I did a video probably about 6 months ago or so that bombed, absolutely bombed. But that's fine. But it was, you get what you pay for. And it was actually in response to the dupe culture that exists on social media that I was tired of. And I didn't know how to address it. And to be fair, I just didn't know the angle of the video. I think that's probably why it bombed, because it's like, how do you kind of find a place to squeeze in this sort of idea? But what I wanted to say to people was, the general sort of idea of behind the video was like, you have to figure out what is important to you, and what do you value, and then make a decision of where you want to buy. And I gave a decision of like a dining table. And I gave a few different examples of sort of, I think, a dining table and whatever, couches. And I gave you a few different options at different price points based on what you value. Video bombed. It was too technical, but it was basically, it was kind of like saying, you know, people want restoration hardware, but they want to pay IKEA prices. Right. And I was trying to say, like, there are some things that you can absolutely sort of find space to sort of cheap out, and it's fine because the quality is not going to be that different. Like you can get something like a brass lamp from Article or from IKEA, which is going to be even cheaper.
Wait, is Article on the same level as IKEA?
No, it's not. Article I feel is nicer. I love Article. They're based in Vancouver too.
Get out.
Yeah, just down the street. Just down the street from me. I want a tour, but they haven't picked up my calls. Anyway, so you can find ones, but restoration hardware is just ridiculous, right? You're looking at like $6.95 a lamp, and yeah, you can find ones for $129 or whatever. But I really just wanted to highlight that at different price points, you are going to get something that's a little bit different that you may not value, right? Like I always use the example in my personal life. It's like, if you buy an apartment, a brand new in like a building, the higher up you go, the more expensive the units get.
Right.
That's typical because you're going to get the view. But I'm kind of afraid of heights. So it's stupid for me to overpay for an apartment that's on the 40th floor when I'm afraid of heights. I don't value that height the way that other people do. So you're kind of stupid for buying something and overpaying for something that you yourself don't value. So I really wanted to sort of break out, what is restoration hardware and why is it so expensive and why are other places so expensive? And sometimes it's quality, like if you're getting a handcrafted oak table from some artisan who lives in your city, which is amazing and that's fantastic, and they're going to use solid wood and they're going to hand carve it and whatever. Great, you get what you pay for. That person's going to be really expensive. If you're going to something like RH, just know that you're going to be paying for the experience of going to RH. You're going to be paying for that beautiful showroom with the chandeliers all around. You're going to be paying for the service, the staff that's going to do some space planning for you, that's going to whip out a CAD drawing right there and take your floor plan and like plan out and map out your space to make sure that it has the proper clearances and you're buying the right things. All that stuff costs money. You're paying for the fact that you can say, oh, I bought this at RH. If that, kind of like my, condo in the sky example, if you don't value that, then don't spend the premium. No matter what an influencer tells you to do, don't spend that money on that premium for that type of product because it just doesn't matter to you. Some people really do matter. Like there's a place, I also highlighted like a rug company called Benny Rugs that makes they ship them from Morocco and they're like custom rugs. So you order all your different things of your different pieces. Not trying to say you should necessarily buy from them, I'm not sponsored, but, and you can go and you can actually take all these, you can customize a rug and all that stuff takes time. All that stuff takes time and that's going to cost money. If you care about that, spend the premium. If you don't, then don't worry about it. The other general advice I give to people is, what is the stuff that you touch and use every day, and spend money there. So I would say things like couches are worth spending money on. A good bed is worth spending money on. These are not things, if you're uncomfortable in your bed because you have a spring that's sticking into your back, that is something that you should probably change out and figure out one that fits you better. Decor, it doesn't really matter all that much, right? You can go to HomeSense or Home Goods and you can find, marble decor or trays. I don't love HomeSense, Home Goods, but that's a whole other story. But you can find real marble stuff that is $15 that's going to be quality that you are going to be able to hold on to. And that's kind of my whole thing when it comes to making some of these purchases is invest in things that you know are going to stick around for a long time, that are going to be quality pieces. So you mentioned the MDF furniture and all that stuff. If it feels disposable, it probably is meant to be disposable, and maybe skip it.
Skip it.
But that's hard. It's hard to say that when I'm in a privileged position of being this sort of influencer in this space, and B, I can't speak to everybody's budget, right? Like people turn around and go like, oh, IKEA's garbage. And it's like, well, I get that's where you're coming from, but it's sometimes where people can afford to shop. And it speaks to a much bigger problem, which I know you highlight a lot on this channel, which is wages haven't kept up. And that's, it's a hollowing out of that sort of middle class that has made it really a lot more challenging of where people are actually expected to shop.
I think that's all totally on point. And I will say that one of the, limited upsides of this like super trend-based culture, you mentioned that, someone who's redoing stuff's all going on Facebook Marketplace. We're in the golden era of being able to buy secondhand home goods, truly. Like my colleague was just talking about that this morning because she moved from an apartment they bought a home, so they have some rooms to fill. So she was like, Facebook Marketplace is the shit. Like it is amazing. And, here in the city, obviously we don't have cars. There's definitely Facebook Marketplace is popping here, but we also have a huge density in New York City of thrift stores, which have usually amazing furniture. And I do think that, we always want to be super budget conscious. And I'm glad that you mentioned that like you may be working with an IKEA budget, but I think it's worth acknowledging that with the secondhand market that we have, you actually can get much higher quality stuff for those same IKEA prices. And I personally, like one of the biggest shifts that I made, over the past several years and especially, now that we own a home and really trying to invest in it is, for me anyway, like really focusing on the materials because, even like you said, even at some of these, lower end stores, you can get all wood stuff. You can get stuff that's brass. You can get stuff that's marble. You can get things that are made of high quality materials that you can, put together, undo and put together again when you move. Like,
because if you tried to put together an IKEA bed frame after you've moved, good luck if that's ever coming back together. That is going to squeak forever.
That is, yes, you've got a squeaky boy on your hands now. But I do think that you no longer have to sort of pick between one or the other in a lot of cases. I will also share a hot tip that I really didn't know was a thing so much until recently is floor models you can really negotiate with. Like we got a Jonathan Adler, and I know I shudder to think of your opinion of Jonathan Adler because I know a lot of interior design people don't like him.
He's not my taste, but that's okay. But he's funky, and I love the art. Sorry, not to interrupt your story, but my personal take is like, and I say this a lot on my channel, is like my style is not your style. It's hard because the audience on one hand wants me to educate, which is generally a little bit more unbiased. But then they're also like, which is what I did at the start of my channel. It was all education. And then the sort of people were like, well, no, we actually really want you to tell us what you think.
To drag stuff.
Yeah, what do you like? And we want you to drag stuff, which is also, And there's a huge chunk of my audience that just wants me to drag stuff in every single video. But for me, and that's not really what I want to do. But there's a little bit of like, I can appreciate different design that is not my own style. And I said all the time, like, I'm not a big fan of traditional design in general, but there's some things I love about it. But I can still appreciate and respect different design styles because that's how it works, right? You don't have to. It's like fashion. I dress how I want to dress, but I still appreciate other people that take different risks and try different things. So Jonathan Adler is an example, I would say, of a designer who is not necessarily my taste, but that's okay. That's not. It's about. Yes. I appreciate the aesthetic and the style.
Well, I mean,
from afar.
My grandmother, who I think had the best taste of any person who ever lived, was very Hollywood Regency. A lot of lacquer, a lot of leopard, a lot of statues of giraffes places. Right. Like all of the things I've inherited from her are that style, and I love them. But to be fair, Jonathan Adler, I mean, he ratchets that aesthetic up to a 10. And I wouldn't want to live with too many pieces of his, but this one happened to be perfect for the space. But all of that is to say, the table was originally like $3,200, $3,400. We got it for over half off because it was the floor model. It had a few superficial scratches that we easily got out with like what is that stuff called? It's like, I don't know what it is, to like get a scuff out of wood.
I don't know.
Anyway, suffice to say, it was the most superficial damage, but it's, solid mahogany, brass bearings. Like, it's a really high quality table, but it did not even occur to me before that moment that not only are floor models in these stores often heavily discounted, you can also negotiate on them because they have to get rid of them.
Right. And end of season, too.
Exactly.
I think every planter, which are expensive and stupidly expensive, and I don't know why planters are so expensive, but I think every planter I've ever got has been end of season or floor model.
Hell yeah.
Because why?
Free delivery.
It's going to sit outside, so if it's dinged in the store, I can tell you it's going to get a lot more dinged on my patio.
Exactly. No kidding. And also, I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, if you're talking about pieces that you live with and live on every day, it's not going to remain perfect forever.
Yeah.
Here at TFD, we often talk about the importance of paying down high-interest debt. It's an important step in being able to reach all of your short-term and long-term money goals. That's where Upstart comes in. Upstart has helped over 1.8 million customers on their path to financial freedom. Upstart-powered personal loans can help you pay down high-interest debt, all online, with simple and easy-to-understand payment terms. Whether it's paying off credit cards or consolidating high-interest debt, Upstart can help you get one fixed monthly payment with a clear payoff date. You can check your rate in minutes for loans between $1,000 to $50,000 without impacting your credit score. Don't wait and check your rate today at upstart.com/TFC. That's upstart.com/TFC to check your rate today. And don't forget to use our URL to let them know that we sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Go to upstart.com/TFC. So in terms of, obviously we've talked about kind of where to invest and all of that. I'd love to, before we get to our audience questions, of which there are many, kind of get your same sort of overall principles and ideology for when it comes to organizing a space and making it functional. Because I do think that often when we talk about home decor, we talk about aesthetics.
Yes.
But we don't as often talk about, what are the thoughts that the questions we should be asking ourselves, the process we should be taking when it comes to making our home functional.
And unfortunately, that's like, we tend to talk about the sexy stuff, which is usually the finishes, right? That's what people love to talk about. And that's, to be fair, what I talk about on my channel a lot, because that's sometimes where people go wrong, and it's usually what people click on, and it's usually what people really care about. But I do sort of weave in some of the other things that really matter. Proper space planning is nothing. You can have a beautiful space, but if people can't function and move around it, eliminating clutter is, buying the right size furniture, which is difficult because when people move, sometimes the living room, which is a huge challenge, which is the living room sofa that was perfect for your old space, and all of a sudden it just isn't the right size for your new space. All that stuff tends to be a challenge. But ideally, mapping out the space to make sure that you have proper clearances around, make sure that everybody has a place to put their glasses, they have a place to put their cups, you have the right clearances, the right measurements between the edge of the sofa and the coffee table, that your coffee table is the right height versus your living room sofa, making sure that there's enough clearance around your dining room table. If it's a small space, go with a round one because that's better for circulation. If it's a larger space, then you can probably get away with having a rectangle dining table. It's usually the unsexy stuff like measurements and getting tape and putting it on the floor and like just really taping out your space to make sure that you have the right clearances around everything. It's usually space planning where things go wrong. I have a thing where I've just started doing this on my channel where people submit, they go to roastmyspace at nicklewis.ca, feel free to send me something, and they send me photos and videos of their space, and then I go on my channel and I say it's roast. I'm very kind. It's not really roasting. I'm very kind. But I basically take the photos and give them advice, and things I see all the time. First of all, everybody paints their walls white. I'm telling you right now, like you have other options. You have other options, people. You don't have to go with white. And then space planning. It's the sofa and the chairs pushed up against the wall, right? Without creating an actual conversation area. It's the rug that's too small for the space, right? And everything is floating in a weird, people just do weird things with their space planning. And it's like, no, you have the room. Think of how you're going to use it. Think of the basic function. Is it for eating? Is it for living? Is it for chatting? Is it for watching TV? Whatever the case may be. Is it your bedroom? Make sure you have the right clearances and the right size furniture that's going to work for your space. Then, and only then, only then, do you start going to the store. Do you start looking at Facebook Marketplace? Do you start thinking of what's going to fit in that area? But yeah, taping off the area, making sure you have the right clearances. Google it. I have videos on measurements on my channel or wherever you can find them. Google them. What is the proper height for a pendant over a dining room table? What should the clearance be between the bottom of the dining room pendant and the table? Use your best judgment, of course, as well. These are just guidelines, but
you're referring to a pendant light.
A pendant light, sorry, yes. What did I say?
Pendant, but some people might not know.
Oh, there you go. A pendant light over top of a dining room table. Make sure you have, like, it's these things. It's these things that are not sexy. No one is just, like, talking about that, but it's that stuff that feels off. It's that when you walk into a space, it's that, like, ooh, excuse me, as I just, like, shimmy between your couch and your kitchen and your coffee table because, oopsie, you bought a couch that's too big for your space. And that's kind of one of the challenges. So it always starts with space planning. Then you go through, and that's, again, it's not sexy, it's not interesting, and it's not what people want to talk about. People want to talk about, yes, I know, but can you show me the prettiest brass and marble that CB2 has come out with this season? And I'm there for that content too. But, you know, that's where it all begins, I think. And that's where people go wrong.
I feel so validated by this, not to make this about what I did, but I'm going to do it. It's my show. We were in escrow for in contract for 120 days on our apartment. Co-ops, that'll do it. But suffice to say, I have this journal that I bought. Page after page, we have some pages that are inspiration pages, but a scale model of every room where I'm drawing out every piece and then taped out everything, every single thing before. And people were making fun of me when I took a picture when I got my keys. They were it looks like a basketball court in there because there was taped out everything. Yeah. I was I am not buying one thing unless I know that it is the perfect measurement, because I'm sorry, maybe it's easy for people who live in a home with a car and big doors and whatever to return something, but you try returning a couch in New York City.
Yeah, no.
You might as well burn the couch.
You might as well. Yeah, no, when I bought my coffee table, I took cardboard and constructed a 3D drawing basically of this coffee table before making sure that it was the right height and everything, because if it's too small, it looks funny. If it looks too big, it's hard to move around and it looks funny. Totally. So if you look at an interior designer's process, if you were to go hire an interior designer, that's where they would start. Then they would look at inspiration. They would, of course, they start with you. What are your goals? What's the mood of your space? All those different things. Then they go with a space planning, which they use CAD, they'll use SketchUp, or they'll use whatever software, which obviously is too complicated for most homeowners, which is why I recommend taping on the floor. And then what they'll do is then they'll look at inspiration. Then they'll look at, what design styles am I looking at here? What do I really like about this? What do I like about this? And how can we... Then we go get samples, which is the next step, right? To make sure that you get samples if you can. So a lot of retailers, people don't know, even the online guys like Article and Rove Concepts and whatever, they'll all ship you a little pack of samples that you can go and take a look and touch and feel the fabric. Do. I did a TikTok that is 1 million views where I was here's a hot tip. Get your samples. If you have pets, rub them on your dog or your kids, feel free, and see if it attracts the fur. And that was a tip from one of my subscribers, which was, so I can't claim it, even though it's good. You take the thing and you just wipe it on the dog and see if it clings to the fur, because you'll be surprised. Some of it is a magnet to dog fur, and some of it is much better at handling that type of stuff. So really thinking through, going from the space planning, find the right things, picking the right fabrics that are going to work for you. If you have kids, go with performance fabrics. They've come a long way over the last couple of decades, right? They're no longer kind of that brown microfibery stuff that was really big in the early 2000s. Now you wouldn't know. It just looks it's like everything else. It just looks like regular fabric. It's beautiful, and it will resist stains, and you can spill whatever on. So think of your lifestyle of do you have kids? Do you have dogs, pets, blah, blah, blah. How's that all going to work? And then then selecting, and everybody jumps to the end because that's the sexy stuff. Everybody wants to go to the finishes, right? Everybody wants to go to the end and not thinking of the space planning and not thinking of those different requirements that you need for your space.
The sample game is so underrated.
It is
unbelievable. And we're talking about really high-end brands will send you all kinds of samples. Sometimes you have to pay for them, but often you don't. And even when you do, it's totally worth it. Especially if it's something where you're looking at potentially doing a whole wall and wallpaper, or, you're getting new flooring, or, any of that stuff. live with the samples for a while.
100%, yes. And flooring and stuff like that is generally, the manufactured stuff is really easy. But even if you're going to get new countertops in, if you're doing a full renovation or you're doing a lot with natural stone, you can go to the stone yard. They'll usually be a little bit iffy about it because it's not as easy to crack off a piece of marble from a slab and send it home with you. But if you're really interested and you show up maybe a few times and they know that you really want to work with them, or you're working with a fabricator who obviously has that relationship, get a sample of different natural stones as well. Like, get all that stuff together. That's what designers do. And so approach it the same way, right? Like, it's what kind of mood you want to create in the space, proper space planning, getting your samples, starting to choose your furniture, getting inspiration. I didn't realize all this years and years and years ago, but designers absolutely are inspired by other designers and other designs that they see. I think people think designers just cook this stuff up in their head and then it's just like magic come to life. Which, you know, fine, but they're seeking inspiration. That's why these trends happen, because they're looking at Pinterest. Designers are looking at Pinterest. They're looking at Pinterest. They're looking at Instagram. They're looking at all the same places as you to like find that stuff, see that inspiration of what works, and then coming up with something uniquely your own. So massaging, obviously, they're not just blatant copying, but massaging the design a little bit, taking inspiration from things that aren't images that aren't even design, right? Just like aesthetic images that you'd find in Vogue or whatever, and then curating something that is more of a mood board or a concept board. Then finally, now we're moving through the process. Then you can start actually, you know, doing your fixed elements and then doing your furniture and all that stuff. That's how it goes.
Couldn't agree more. So as I mentioned, we have quite a few questions from our audience, so I'm going to dive right into those.
I'm curious what I'm going to get. Are they like personal questions? Like, I have a really difficult, tiny little office in the corner. I don't, because that's what I usually get when people ask me questions.
We have a fair amount of those.
It has some very specific design questions, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to like imagine. But let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah. Okay. So this person is a total budget freak. DIY, yay or nay? Should I risk the time and effort? When and how?
Question. We started off strong. Okay, so I'm not a big DIY guy, as you know. In fact, I have a series on my channel called DIYs I Don't Hate because I don't like DIY. Here's my problem. Okay, so my thing with DIYs...
Now, be specific when you're talking about DIY. Yeah, like, are you talking about people building furniture?
Could be. All the way from I built my own table to check out this, I don't know, wall art that you created yourself to, you know, whatever. I built a tray out of something. And that's usually my problem. Sometimes my problem with DIYs, talking about kind of what we talked about earlier, is DIYs are sometimes really disposable. And that's what I don't like. I've seen so many DIYs that are like, I mean, I made the joke in the video of like, hey, I built my coffee table out of pool noodles. And it's like, listen, just because you can, doesn't mean you should. And so that's always my problem. It's like, that is not timeless. And we can have a whole conversation about what is timeless design. But for me, that is not timeless. That is disposable. And that is a waste of pool noodles. To me, that type of stuff, really, it's kind of what we talked about earlier. People want the look and they want to do the dupe because that's where they're going to get the effect of, I pick on Restoration Hardware, but whatever, they're convenient. They want the RH look, but they don't know how to do it. So instead they're going to sort of look to YouTube. And there's a huge DIY community on YouTube that I am not a part of because I personally don't like DIY. But that's the thing, is a lot of it feels disposable. Now, the DIYs I don't hate, which is what I talked about in this video, is there are some things I think that can be fairly timeless and are just clever. And it's a way of repurposing something that you would maybe throw out and you're able to turn it into something kind of really cool. So long as it is something that you if you genuinely love the end product rather than it's good enough, then great.
Okay.
Like I've seen people that are able, like I love the DIYs out of concrete where people are able to create like concrete trays. I've seen people that take like spray paint. There's a lot you can do with a can of spray paint.
Sure is.
You can take like old, is taking old tired hardware and spray painting it black. Is that a DIY? Sure. But I would say that's a pretty good way. I always recommend that to get a cohesive look because now you're matching all your different finishes in your space, your metals, which is amazing and great to create sort of cohesion in your space. And you're able to do it in a way that is cheap. It's a can of spray paint. So that stuff I'm really behind. But I've seen people, using like, I think it's like PVC pipes, and they're able to sort of use it and create this like sculptural furniture that's coming out of some of these designers. And I'm like, no, your chair is made out of PVC pipes. If you're going to be happy with the end result, like you can envision, great. But don't try to dupe something into being good enough when it's made out of something that's not good. That's not timeless.
Yeah.
So that's where I draw the line.
It's hard to define DIY. I'm certainly not out here building furniture, but my husband is an engineer by trade. Well, I mean, not by trade. He works on computers now, but he did go to engineering school.
Like software or like mechanical?
So software, but he had, where he went to school, there was kind of training in different disciplines as well.
Okay.
So the man can measure. The man can do geometry.
Okay.
The man's like pretty functional with tools. So I do set him to work a fair amount because he's very good at anything that like he's very meticulous and will find the most efficient way to do things like applying wallpaper or, you know,
Right.
when I tell you that repainting all that cabinetry and creating like changing some of the facades on it and things like that, it certainly wasn't like woodworking level, but I would have done it in a really shitty way. But,
Right.
you know, he's very in that way. I think that's where I like a DIY.
Know your own skill level and be really truthful about that, because I'm not. My dad's an engineer, a mechanical engineer. I did not inherit those genes. Those did not come to me. And nor do I want to. I'd rather do what I do, which is I guess I'm really reasonably good at it. And that's how I make money. And then I pay somebody else to do that stuff.
1,000%.
And that's another way to go. So, I would say, dear question asker, is know your own skill level and work with that.
Yes.
Because that's another thing. And be truthful and honest about that. Because Mike and I, my partner, we are not DIYers. And so for us, we would rather pay an expert and, have them go do that, because that's also awesome.
Yeah.
And all are okay. But if you can fandangle something on your own and you're going to really love the end product and you're truly going to love it, like it's going to be in your home for a long time and it's not some cheap disposable, like those foam mirrors, which I've also made fun of on my channel, which is those, have you seen those? These TikTok, the Gen Zs, I mean, I get it. They don't like the mid-century modern because that's us old millennials. Like, they all want something different. I get it. But they want to go with this super crazy, kooky postmodern stuff. Some of it's cool. Some of it is foam mirrors. And it's basically this construction foam, that you spray on a mirror. So you buy a cheap mirror and then you foam all the outside and then you paint it pink, blue, green, usually a sickly pastel color, and then it's like it's called a cloud mirror, I think is what it's called, and it's like a fluffy mirror that is made out of foam, and that to me is not a DIY that I get behind. Sorry, was this a lightning round question period? Because I did not treat it that way.
But that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I very much I am not into, this is actually, it's funny. I wore a top that is the most designy top I own because I was I want to celebrate your presence here.
Oh, and I just wore a polo.
I know. Well, look at that. But
yeah.
99% of the stuff that I wear and own is very much something that probably would have been wearable 10, 20 years ago and will probably be wearable in the future. And I do think that's even more important with home decor. Don't buy something that someone can look at and be like, you did that in 2021.
And nothing says 2021 like a foam mirror. Yeah, agreed. And there's some stuff that just inherently, the timeless stuff, and that is always a tricky question because no one has that crystal ball of what is truly going to be timeless in the future. As a general rule, if it was great decades ago or thousands of years ago, like arches and things like that, then I would say that they're probably going to stand the test of time. Things like subway tile. A lot of people hate on the subway tile because they think it was a trend in the mid 2010s and now they're done with it. I think it's a timeless design.
Yeah, I like
always
it.
Looks good. Listen, I'm not saying it's always the most adventurous choice, but and that's the thing with design. Sometimes the most adventurous choices are the ones that are in the moment and will date, which is tricky. But I think that good design is good design, and a 3x6 subway tile is always beautiful.
And if a place looks like it's you and a reflection of your own taste and your own idiosyncrasies,
fabulous.
That's always in style.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you both rant about the farmhouse trend?
I've ranted to no end on the farm.
So get going.
I have videos with millions of views of me ranting. So I actually did a video. I feel like I'm plugging my own videos. Honestly, you don't have to watch them.
Plug away. That's why you're here.
No, I did a video on fixing farmhouse where I attempted to do the impossible, which was how can one fix farmhouse design? And I think for me, what I love about it, what's tricky about farmhouse is the sense of place. you don't live in a farmhouse. Well, you might, in which case, go for it. But if you live in the suburbs of Salt Lake City, you don't live in a farm, and therefore farmhouse is missing a sense of place. And that, I think, is sometimes really a big problem. Then it has morphed into sort of like mom blog wine mom culture, and it's turned into its own like beast of the cheesy signs and the faux architectural details to make it look like you're in a farm, but you're not. And everything looking crazy distressed. Like, we love Kelly Clarkson, but we do not love that Kelly Clarkson collection from Wayfair, right? Like, it's a lot of the faux, and it's because you're faking that you live in a farmhouse and you don't. So that is, I think, really what's a problem. So I attempted to fix farmhouse by saying, stick to authentic things. There's some things. So the thing about farmhouse that I love is that it's actually very accessible. A lot of people find it's comfortable. It's great to raise kids because it never feels too stuffy. It feels relaxed and comfortable for a lot of people. It's got that big farmhouse dining room table, which is usually kind of a signature piece in the farmhouse space. And that can look really beautiful. And, obviously that speaks to a sense of like family and belonging. And so it's comfortable for a lot of people, which is now why, we've gone from the Joanna Gaines aesthetic to like the, Studio McGee sort of aesthetic, which is more in line with, I still feel like it's got a little bit of a farmhouse, and I feel like she lives in Salt Lake City, so I didn't mean to make that connection. I'm not calling that out, but I feel like that's morphed into something that's a little bit less cheesy and a little bit more still some of the properties of accessible farmhouse, but not some of the cheesiness and the kitschiness that we've seen. Your rant, go.
I'm going to go a step further than you. I'm going to say that I totally agree with your core assessment, which is that you are fundamentally in a space of cheese at some level because you are trying to create an environment that is fundamentally not the environment that you're in.
Absolutely.
And I do think that there is, and it's that faux authenticity of it that I think never ages well. And I do think it's very important in general when you have a space to like lean into, if you can, the original fixtures. Where are you? Where do you live? Like, you're not going to do, you wouldn't do like coastal decor, like Cape Cod decor in, I don't know, like.
But people do, for the record.
Yeah, I guess people do. But like, you don't want a bowl of shells in Milwaukee. I mean, maybe
they do in the bathroom, and I hate the coastal bathroom. Well, I do. If it's okay, that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
But I do think that like it's really the faux authenticity and the attempting to create an environment that is fundamentally not the environment you live in. And also often what is so striking and wonderful about farmhouses, both in the US and in other countries, is that you're talking about these heirloom handcrafted pieces, the beams on the ceiling, the wood, the textures, the materials, the lived in aspect of it. Yeah. And to have that all created through, particle board and, fixtures you got off Amazon, I feel like really does no justice to that aesthetic. And I predict, because when we look back at the early 2000s with that faux Tuscan stuff, that was absolutely everywhere. And we look at that and they're like, yeesh, because nothing is more tacky than trying to make, a random house in Hackensack feel like you're at a Tuscan villa in a literal sense. Like, not necessarily like taking some cues, but like literally trying to recreate that with none of the history or materials or environment. I think it's going to look just as tacky.
And that's true. And I think also when we look at the early 2010s, silvery glam aesthetic, right? Where everything was chrome, everything was glitter, everything was sequins and rhinestones, and everything was gray washed. The floors were gray, like it was that gray wood that was it was cold and lifeless, but it was an imitation of a glamorous style. But instead of true glamour, which might involve luxury materials, it was faux luxury materials, right? So instead of actually getting marble countertops, which obviously people can't really afford, and I super get that, but then choose a different aesthetic, because I can tell you that it's fine if you're going to put, well, I don't know, is it fine to put marble contact paper on top of your countertops in order to faux a marble look? That. I would argue no, but it's hard because people want the look, but they can't get the look, and so that's kind of sometimes a challenge. Yeah, farmhouse is tricky. And even, by the way, which you mentioned about the authenticity, I think was like Ray Dunn who often gets torn apart on social media, even on my channel, which I don't begrudge Ray for, like, you know, making her bank of money that she's probably got. But she started out making handcrafted ceramics herself. That's what she got into. She got into making ceramics and making all these beautiful little handcrafted pieces. Yes, she puts words on them. Yes, I'm sick of putting words on things, but that was kind of her thing. And then she sold to this Chinese company. I forget what their name is. And that's when they had the idea of Ray Dunn and putting the words on the mass-produced stuff that's being shipped out of China and putting it in every, I don't know, what store is it here? TJ Maxx? Is that what you guys put it in? Yeah. So Home Goods or whatever, you're going to find it. It's that is exactly encapsulates what we're talking about. That faux authenticity of, like, it started out being really beautiful handcrafted ceramics that you paid a ceramicist who is really great to, like, make those. And you're like, okay, this is something beautiful that I can take care of for years to come. And instead it's just like, hold on, let me go grab the next Ray Dunn, you know, dog bowl that says woof on the side because I've got to display that or whatever. And that's now complete. Yeah, it's not what it was supposed to be.
100%. Okay. When ceilings are high, what do you do? Tall stuff? Short stuff?
That's a very good question. So are they like double height ceilings or just
That's all the information
ceilings?
I have.
That's all you have. Yeah. Yes. I mean, this is why I'm a big fan of wall treatments myself, or painting them interesting colors, because sometimes that big blank white wall, it's a bigger problem of just people don't know what to do with the big white blank wall. Getting a piece of art can work, but that's a really simple answer. I would say look into different wall treatments can be really great. I love panel moldings. I love all different sorts of moldings that you can put on a wall. If you're a renter, you can buy renter-friendly ones. People often don't know that. I didn't know that when I was a renter. That was when I found that out, I was like, that's amazing. You can use wallpaper. Some of them are really funky and trendy. Some of them are a little bit more timeless. If you have cabinetry, ideally, I love cabinets that go right to the ceiling. When you have super tall ceilings, that might not be possible. Then it's okay to have sort of cropped cabinets, I think. But if you're in the kitchen, that's one of the challenges, right? Is when you have really tall ceilings, is what do you do with your cabinetry? You obviously can't go all the way to the ceilings. Otherwise, it looks like a library, or you need like a ladder just to get up there. But yeah, I would say that's kind of, or just leave it, or paint your walls an interesting color.
I would agree with all that.
Or paint your ceiling a different color, right? Like people, the ceilings are the most underutilized surface in interior design. People know kind of what to do with their floors, sort of. Like, I think I need a rug. They know what to do with their walls because they look at that, but they don't realize that design is so often like it's the rhythm in your space is supposed to meant to guide your eye around the room. So you're supposed to be looking up and down, left and right. And if you've got nothing on the ceiling, you kind of prevent doing that. So if you can draw people up to those large ceilings and really show them off, that's beautiful. And ideally, if you have windows, I mean, that's amazing if you have windows.
Love a window.
Love windows. Natural light with tall ceilings. I mean, if you're lucky to have tall ceilings, hopefully you have a window.
And chandeliers / hanging lighting.
Love it.
It draws the eye up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you have good lighting, that makes all the difference in a space where you're, what do I do? What do I do? Do I not want to paint the ceiling? That's another way that you can draw the eye up, as you said, is even a boring space looks beautiful if you put gorgeous lighting in.
And it looks so intentional. How do inexpensive ways to make the stuff that I already have feel cohesive / work together?
Yeah, it's tricky because there's no magic wand to make some of that stuff work. That's some of the questions that sometimes are tricky. Again, like if you're in love with everything and you don't want everything to change, then that's different. But assuming that you're open to, to me, about creating a cohesive space is often creating things that are either united in things like color, pattern, texture, design style, whatever. And you sort of have different nods of different things that are sort of tracked throughout the space, right? And so if you have a bunch of stuff that is completely of different style, completely of different colors, and then go fix it, that can be tricky. And then it's about like I said earlier, if you've got metals in your space and they're all different colors, like let's say you've got a brass chandelier and your door hardware is chrome, and then you've got, all of your furniture maybe has brushed nickel, so it's kind of the same as the chrome, but it's really not. And then you've got matte black some places because you had a moment, and then you got some bronze. That can be really tricky because metals are a really great and easy way to sort of unite the space. So, if it's possible to swap out some of that hardware so you can create links between your existing pieces, that goes a long way, I think, to making a space feel cohesive, right?
Well said.
And I think it's that can be fairly easy. Door hardware, cabinet poles, all that stuff is a fairly easy way to link some of these things together, switch those things up. That can really help. And again, it gets easier, I think, as you uncover and learn about yourself and your own style over time, because then you don't just buy things. Like I know that I did in my early 20s. I just went to the store and was like, oh, I really like that. And then I would buy it and I would take it home. And I'm like, it just doesn't work with any of the stuff that I got. And it's not until that I really sort of take a step back and buy things a little bit more intentionally on thinking not just about do I like it or not like it, but is it going to fit in this space? Because I find a lot of stuff that I like that wouldn't work in my space. And it just doesn't feel right for the home that I have. And so I would say if you're going to add anything, I know the question was, how do you take stuff that I already own? But if you are thinking of adding or subtracting, think of things in a way of, are they united by design style? Are they united by texture, or are they united by color? Color is one of the easiest ways that you can create cohesion in a space, right? So you've got here like your lovely little books and whatever. Like you've got different cute little links of color that are sort of brought together. No, but it's true, right? It's little things that you can see color is brought together, metals being brought together, replicated in the space in different areas of the home that make a space feel like it's connected.
I love it. So as a last little quick thing before we say goodbye, do you have like one quick tip that is unexpected or kind of counterintuitive or people might not think of when they're designing a space?
Do I have any quick tips?
So like as an example for me, and you might disagree with this, but I feel like there always should be one thing that's like not in perfect taste. Like there should always be one thing that's kind of funky, that doesn't perfectly fit in with everything else. That's, like you never want to have everything look really perfect and matching and like it's from a catalog or something. You always want something a little bit like, a little kooky, maybe something you got while traveling or something that's, a different style or whatever, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I would say that, in regards to that specifically, I would say finding things that really reflect your personality and bringing that in. And I know that feels a little bit cliche, but it's kind of true. Like, and again, that comes in time of you sort of learning your style a little bit more, what you like and what you don't like, and drawing inspiration from others, and then finding the right pieces that really actually work. It's like people probably buy too much. Like we were talking about this earlier. I feel like it's the theme of the whole podcast here, but it's like people just buy and cycle through, and it's like really trying to understand what pieces sort of reflect you. And I know, like, for example, like gallery walls, people have a hate on for gallery walls right now because they think that they're really cliche and they're a little bit over, but they are a really great way to add your own I know, exactly. But they are a really great way to add your own photos and your own touch and making your own art. I mean, I'm not a DIY, as we said, but like there's some art out there that's actually fairly easy to make yourself. And even if there's a story, it doesn't have to always be something necessarily that you made or whatever, but even if there's a story around like finding that particular piece, like I was in a certain city or a certain country, or I'm supporting a specific artist, that type of stuff, I think, is that sense of sort of storytelling in a space that feels like you're walking into a, you mentioned your grandmother has the best style that you've ever known, had. Yes. But it's because there was a sense of storytelling, I imagine, in that space, the way just even those little pieces that you described. So what is your story and how is that reflected in your space? Because if it feels hollow and empty because you went with the same Scandi boho, neutral boho look that you've seen all over Instagram, if that's you, like, great, but like find ways of even mixing that up. Like you said, an unexpected piece here or there. The whole idea of boho originally, by the way, was found objects that you found in your travels. It was a bohemian lifestyle where you find things, and then you curate those and bring them into your home and show them off to people because it's part of your adventures and your lifestyle that you were able to sort of get these pieces. All that stuff is kind of missing sometimes in these spaces. So really getting to the core of who you are and what's the story you want to tell and how is that reflected in your space. And I know that's not very specific, but it's honestly that and space planning is kind of...
Those are the big tips.
And cohesion and creating a cohesive space where everything works together. Those are the big things.
Well said. Well, I knew this would be a delight, and I'm never wrong. So, once again, I was correct. Where can people go to find more of what you do?
I am on YouTube. Just search Nick Lewis. And then you can find me on TikTok. Are you on TikTok? It's like a crazy world over there. But TikTok's now like my second biggest thing. Like it's taken off.
I know.
So you can find me at Nick Talks Design on TikTok. And then you can also find me on Instagram, Nick Talks Design, where I usually go to stores and make fun of stuff that I see at different retailers.
Man.
I post on my Instagram stories. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and thank you guys so much for being here, and we will see you next Monday on an all-new episode of The Financial Confessions. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.